Hello, thanks for tuning in. Today, I wanted to go over one of the principles behind this new account that I'm building up. And basically, the thing that ties everything together and makes it all work is Beskar Armor Mando, which is a surprise to me because as a unit, he's not great. His team's okay, gets some holds. He's a good pilot, but as most people often say, the Mandalorian you use to get Beskar Armor Mando is the better character. So I was surprised that when I thought more about the Beskar Armor Mando journey, the more it kind of became clear to me that you can use that journey, and by trying to make sure that every part of that journey that you gear up is useful down the road, you're setting yourself up for success, mostly through getting usable teams, even if they're not top of the line teams, and we'll go over that pretty soon here. And then also, it knocks out some of your profundity and executive requirements beyond just having the Razor Crest and being able to pilot with Beskar Armor Mando. And so that's why I'm building up this new account. As you can see, not many shards on any of these characters, but I thought I'd just go over like the home that all these characters have and why I think that this is an interesting and cool way to build up a new account. And basically, the BAM journey is you need these 5 specific characters, all up to 7 stars eventually. It's a 7-star unlock, so you won't have them until everyone's 7 stars, geared up enough that you can get through the journey. And then the question is, where does everyone else live? Like, what do I do with all these characters? What do I do with Beskar Armor Mando if I'm mostly just getting him for the Razor Crest? And so the answer I've come up with, and you can see it in more detail in some of the farming guides I put out in account updates, is basically breaking this team out into 3 different squads once you've got them geared up enough that they're usable and useful. The first squad is what you're actually going to do with Beskar Armor Mando. Sticking with Queel and IG-11, you've already got them geared. You want Beskar geared in order to have like a good Razor Crest. And then these last 2 are kind of the wild card slots. So I've got Dengar in right now. You could basically put in any bounty hunter that you're going to need to relic up for the Executor. So like IG-88 potentially instead of Dengar. But I know Dengar's good with Beskar Armor Mando because he can hit the whole enemy team, so you get a bunch of whistling birds stacking from that. And it's also a nice place to kind of find a home for that executor requirement where you might not otherwise have one. Similarly, Dash Rendar, you need a ship and you need him at relics for profundity. So basically, this whole team is an excuse to put together a good defensive team that's useful at the beginning and to make it so that while you're gearing up these requirements for the profundity and the executor, you have a home for as many of those units as you possibly can. And so there's some bounty hunters that just aren't going to have a home once you have the executor unlocked. This is a landing spot for one of them. Maybe Dengar, maybe someone else. Dash is best on his own team, where he's the lead, but that takes a lot of time. So if you just need him and you're just going for the profundity, having a landing spot for him, I think, is a good thing to be doing. So that knocks out IG-11 and Queel, and then the actual unlock, Beskar Mando. So then it's basically a bounty hunter squad. Big surprise for Mandalorian and Grief. And these 3, it's probably going to be boss lead. I think if you really want to focus this, which is what I'm trying to do, you won't be farming kind of the extraneous bounty hunters who are really good characters but don't necessarily add value by being like a pilot or directly leading into something you're trying to unlock. So like getting Zam's Omicron would obviously make this a better team, but that's a detour I'm not going to try and take. Getting Aura lead probably makes this a better team. But again, those are detours you can take later in the game. What you're trying to do is leave yourself with like usable Grand Arena squads, really good ships, and not wasting parts if you don't need to. So here, Django isn't actually an executive requirement, but the Houndstooth at 7-star is. So you'll have a 7-star Django. But this could, again, be one of the other sort of flex slots for something else. You're going to have to get to relics for executor. Maybe Dengar here, IG-88 here, or something like that. You're going to have a leftover bounty hunter or 2. Mando and Grief are really, really good bounty hunters, so you're probably not going to have them at relics, but they're probably still going to be better than bad bounty hunter characters who you need. for the Executor journey. But time will tell. I'm going to experiment a little bit with this. So basically, as you can start to see, a lot of the characters that you need relicked up, or ships that you need, their pilots are represented here. And then the last one um, is the squad we're making the most compromises with, I think. Like, this is a Mon Mothma team that you can use, but there are just so many ways to make it a lot better. They're just not ways that use requirements from the Profundity or the Executor. I imagine at a certain point, Biggs and Wedge are kind of like the weak points to me here. We need Cardoon for Beskar Mando. You need Mon Mothma Relict, and then Kyle Katarn is just a really good third. That is the detour I'm taking with this team. Biggs and Wedge, you need their ships to 7 stars. I don't think there's relic requirements for either on the Profundity journey. But having them decently geared will make the journey easier. It'll make the fleet a little bit better while you're building up all the ships you need. So that's why they're here. The thing that might change in this configuration is we're going to have 6 Rogue One characters unlocked to get the Profundity. The 2 for Biston's Ewing, so Biston and the Scarif Rebel Pathfinder. The 2 for Cassian's Ewing, and then Jyn Erso and Admiral Radis. So that's 6 total characters. Some of them have a Rebel Fighter tag. They're probably going to slot in and replace one of these at a certain point. So this is kind of the most compromises you're making as a team. But what I wanted to do is go through and look at a little like metagame data for how viable these squads and these compositions are. So I'm just looking at 5v5. There's a ton of different bounty hunter compositions floating around. So we basically just have to look for one without Zam Wessel. And we're probably going to get close to how good this would be. So yeah, here's if I had Dengar in, as opposed to like Cad Bane, IG-88, Jango Fett, any of those. Not the best bounty hunter team, but early game, perfectly usable for Grand Arena. So if your goal is to get Executor as fast as possible and you end up with a team like this along the way, that's sort of the gamble I'm making here. Is I think this is like a perfectly reasonable bounty hunter team to use on offense for a little while. And then once I have my big goals out of the way, I might go back and pick up like a Zam Wessel, might switch to Aura Lead, maybe get Fennec. Bounty hunters are useful. They're used to unlock a bunch of different things. So what Galactic Legends I'm going for will probably inform the shape of my bounty hunter roster past getting the Executor. But here, this is a reasonably popular team with Dengar. We've got one that we could do here. We'd have all these characters. We wouldn't be using the Beskar Mando characters, but there's flexibility and some plug and play options that you'll end up with in gearing up all the characters you need for those 2 capital ship journeys. Next is Beskar Mando. I have this toggled to defense, 5v5. You do see a big drop off. So this is the squad as I have it sort of carved out right now, where basically there are people that use IG-88, but we're not going to have time to go and get Enfys Nest. We're not going to get Hondo. We're not going to get L3 or Vandor Chewie for a long time. And we want to be using Dash within the team. So this is not the most common of the compositions you see with him. It's certainly not the best. It's got a 10% difference between the top 2 squads in this. But getting 25% holds off of a team where you're building all the characters for a different reason and you just sort of happen to have this team, I think is really great news. So that's one of the reasons that I'm going with this direction here is you'll end up with viable teams, even if your focus is on incredible fleets and like maybe a couple standout teams that you can use for the game modes like Conquest and Squad Arena. And then here, Mon Mothma, here's where it gets a little bit trickier. This is a pretty common composition here to have both Wedge, Biggs, Cara Dune, and Kyle Katarn with Mon Mothma. You're losing about, it's not quite 50% of its hold percent between the sort of tried and true meta version, which is like far and away the most represented. but it's workable. It's still okay. And so Rebel Fighters is not a team I'm most excited to put together. But the fact that I'm going to be able to find a home for all these great characters, and sort of the only detour I need to take is to farm up Kyle Katarn, who is someone who has a ship, is a pilot, is a rebel, is going to be useful in my squad, even if he's not directly contributing to the journey goals that I have. You'll end up with these 3 teams just from that one journey, kind of dovetailing with all the other goals you have and the journeys you're going to be going on for those. So the reason I'm building my account around Beskar Armor Mando in 2023 is I think he sets up a really interesting foundation in order for you to be able to grab really premier end game things early on in the game, and you're left with a lot of spare parts in your characters because that's the thing you're not focusing on. You're not going for Galactic Legend. You're not trying to build up teams like Revan or Commander Luke Skywalker, and you're instead focusing on ships. But I think the spare parts are better than people give them credit for, and that's basically the assumption of the account. It could fall flat on its face once I finally get Grand Arena unlocked. Let's hope that doesn't happen. But these are sort of 3 of the examples of how I'm trying to repurpose all the spare parts from the odds and ends you're going to be putting together from the BAM event and the Executor and the profundity requirements. So that's it. That's all I wanted to say. Thanks for watching, and I hope you have a really good day. See you later.